It was your casual Friday night. Me and my friends were going to an overnight trampoline park. They were going to lock us in from 11 p.m. through 8 a.m. It was going to be my first time staying overnight at something like this. I usually stayed over at friends' houses, so this was really special to me. My mom drove me to extreme air, and I couldn't hold my excitement in. Listen, Manny, please, for the love of God, don't break your arm while you're here tonight. I don't want to have to pay for a cast, my mom told me. Mom, you know I learned my lesson from the last time something like this happened, I jokingly remarked. As we pulled into the parking lot of Extreme Air, I could see the neon green sign light out of the parking lot in a bright green shade. I got out of my mom's black SUV and made my way inside. Once I was inside, I started looking for my friends. I could see them in the dodgeball arena. Landon, Kyle, Isaiah, and Wyatt. They looked like they were having so much fun. I know you guys aren't playing dodgeball without me, I shouted. Maybe you should have showed up earlier instead of texting your crush, Isaiah said in a mocking tone. Come on, man. You know I don't like any chicks right now. If anything, she's into me, I replied, faking ignorance. You know you can't get with her. She's way out of your league, Wyatt commented. Our little argument was interrupted by one of the employees. All right, boys, we're going to lock up now, and that means no leaving. You will be here until 8 a.m. There will be employees at the snack area, so you can buy food if you guys get hungry. Have a good night, he said. The employee made his way to the entrance and out the door. I could see him pull out a set of keys and lock the glass door. Well, the night has officially started, I stated with a small smile on my face. We all started to explore the place. This place is huge with no kids around, Landon said with a look around, eyes wandering to each area. Yeah, I expected there to be more kids around here, Kyle replied. Sucks that Braylon couldn't come, I said in a solemn way, expressing my distaste. If I'm being real with you, he would probably be asleep within the first hour or so, Isaiah said with a small laugh. Yeah, he would be, Landon replied with his own chuckle, which we all had a small laugh at as well. Anyways, guys, why don't we find something to do? I'm really bored right now, I said with a huff, and someone mumbled agreement. We looked around for something to do, and soon found what looked like a foam pit. I heard these things are really hard to get out of, Landon said with a skeptical look into the pit. No kidding. When I usually come here, I'd spend 50% of the time trying to get out of this thing, Wyatt said. Well, I don't feel like spending all night getting out of a foam pit, I said. Let's keep looking. Maybe we will find something fun, Kyle said. Guys, I know something we can do, Wyatt said. Well, spit it out, Isaiah said. Why don't we just have a dodgeball tournament? Wyatt suggested. Not a bad idea, Landon replied. We made our way back to the dodgeball arena. We were going to do 1-on-1. Hey guys, I'm going to use the bathroom real quick, Landon said. Well, make it quick, I said. We were playing for a few minutes. We were so caught up in the game, we failed to realize how long Landon had been gone. How long has Landon been gone? Isaiah asked. I don't know. He said he was going to use the bathroom real quick, Kyle replied. Well, he's not back, so in a couple minutes we should go raid the bathroom, I said. We played dodgeball for a few more minutes. Landon still isn't back yet. We should go look for him now, Kyle said. We left the dodgeball arena and began to make our way to the rest area. We were all shouting for Landon. We made it to the rest area and checked all the stalls. There's nobody in here, Wyatt said. That's strange. He said he was going to use the restroom, Kyle said. Maybe he got lost, I replied. How about we go ask the employees at the snack area if they've seen him, Isaiah suggested, and we all begrudgingly agreed with him. We made our way to the snack area. When we finally made it, we couldn't see employees there. That's strange. Why isn't anyone here? I asked. I remember the guy clearly saying there would be employees here to serve us food if we got hungry, Wyatt replied. Maybe they're just taking a break or something? Kyle said. We still need to find Landon. He couldn't have gotten far. This place isn't that big, I said. We still haven't checked the foam pit or the climbing area, Kyle said. First, let's go see if he's at the climbing area. Maybe he just got bored and decided to do something else, Isaiah said. We started walking towards the climbing area. While we were making our way over there, I got this overwhelming feeling we were being watched. Hey Manny, you good? Isaiah asked. Yeah, I'm fine. Just felt a little dizzy. That's all, I replied. When we eventually reached the climbing area, we were greeted with no sign of Landon. I thought for sure he would be here, Kyle said. Well, let's hope he's at the foam pit. If not, then I'm not sure where he is, Wyatt said. As we started making our way out of the climbing area into the foam pit, I caught a glimpse of what appeared to be a pale human head. As quickly as I saw it, it vanished. I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me. After all, it was pretty late. I'd say around 1 a.m., so I decided not to tell them. I wouldn't want them to think I'm crazy. As we got closer to the foam pit, we could see something in it. It looked like a sock, like one of the ones you would usually get at a trampoline park. Kyle jumped in to grab it just to make sure. Yep, it's a sock all right, Kyle said. Hey, wait, there's something else in here. Kyle reached into the foam and started pulling out the other items. What he pulled out shocked us to our cores. It was Landon's severed head. We all shouted in terror at what had happened to our friend. Who could have done this? Isaiah asked. Kyle dropped Landon's head and ran over to us. This has to be a prank, Wyatt said. This isn't a prank, Kyle replied. That means we weren't alone, I said. How are we going to leave? Isaiah asked. Did anyone bring a phone? I asked. Nobody answered. Guess that's a no then. As we were discussing how to get out of here, we heard a loud roar. It sounded like a man that had his leg ripped off by a bear. What was that? Wyatt asked. We heard a sound, the sound of footsteps. We got out of the foam pit area, but we couldn't see anything. Then, another loud roar. The roar filled me with the feeling of dread and terror. We started to run for the front door. Out of desperation, we knew it was locked, but it was the only option we had. We ran to the front door, still hearing the shrieks of whatever that thing was. We pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The glass was too strong to smash. How are we going to get out of here? Kyle asked. There's a back door. I remember seeing it while looking for Landon, Isaiah said. You think we could make it out without that thing seeing us? Kyle asked. There's only one way to find out, Isaiah replied. We turned around and started to follow Isaiah. We could still hear the cries and shrieks of that thing that killed Landon. As we got closer and closer to the other side of the building, I was beginning to feel hope that we would be safe. That hope was ripped away from me. Isaiah jiggled the door handle. It's locked, Isaiah said. What? I asked. It can't be. You just didn't twist it right. Listen, Manny, it's locked, and there's no doubt about it, Isaiah responded. This is it. We're going to get hunted down and end up like Landon. We are all gonna die, I shouted. Shh, you're being too loud. That thing could hear us, Wyatt said. What's that noise? Kyle asked. It was footsteps, and they were coming right towards us. That thing had heard me. Hide, Wyatt shouted. The snack area was right beside us. We had all ran over to it and hid behind the counter. As we heard the footsteps get closer, a stench also began to fill the air. It smelled like metal. We could hear sniffs of the creature. It was looking for us, for its next victim. We heard it getting closer and closer to the counter, its stench getting stronger. We could no longer smell the scent of pizza and popcorn, only metal. Then, it stopped, and we could no longer hear its footsteps. although we could still smell metal, that's when it jumped on top of the counter. It was right above us. Luckily, we were in a little compartment under the counter, so it couldn't see us. We could still hear it sniffing the air. I looked over to Wyatt. I could see the fear in his eyes. Then, the creature jumped off the counter. We could hear its heaving footsteps as it began to leave. The scent had also gone with it. We peeked from under the counter, and it was nowhere to be seen. "You guys okay?" Kyle asked. Nobody answered him. We were all too petrified about what had just happened to speak. That's when I had thought of something. "It had to get in somehow, right?" I asked. "That means if we could find where it had entered, we could escape from there." "That's a good idea, but how are we supposed to find where it got in?" Isaiah asked. "I guess we just have to look," I replied. "I mean, what other options do we have?" "Good point," Isaiah said. We made our way out of the snack area and into the trampoline area. We were all on high alert. About 30 minutes had passed since the last time we had heard from the creature. We walked past the foam pit where we found Landon's head. I looked over and caught a glimpse of it. My eyes filled with tears as the thought of all the fun times we had together faded away. I didn't have much time to mourn, though. We stumbled upon a gruesome sight: the mangled bodies of the 2 employees on the ground. They had both been ripped apart, and no human could have done that. Wyatt vomited on the cold, hard-tiled floor. The scene was the stuff of nightmares. We were interrupted by the same exact smell we smelt from the last time we saw the creature. The scent of metal filling the air. We all froze. The thing I saw when I turned around filled me with terror. I saw a humanoid figure. It was pale. Its claws were red and razor sharp. It stood about 8 feet tall, and its face looked like that of a human's, and its eyes looked white, resembling a blind person. It ran at us with lightning speed. We started running in the opposite direction. "Maybe if we get on the trampolines, it will have a hard time following us," Isaiah shouted. We ran onto the trampolines, jumping from one to the other. The creature made its way to the trampolines. It had no trouble keeping up with us. We couldn't outrun the thing. It was too fast. We got off of the trampolines and into another flat area. The creature was right behind us. We all started getting tired, and we couldn't run for much longer. While Kyle was running, he tripped on his own foot and fell onto the tile floor. Wyatt ran over to pick him up. That thing was only a couple of feet behind them. Wyatt had picked up Kyle, and they had both started running again, but Wyatt wasn't fast enough. The creature had rammed into him, knocking him to the floor. It picked him up and drove its claws through his stomach. There was blood everywhere. I locked eyes with Wyatt. He wasn't saying anything, but I understood him just by his eyes. He was telling us to run. "Wyatt!" Kyle screamed. I grabbed Kyle's shoulder, motioning him to run. We rounded the corner and ran. We eventually made it to the dodgeball arena and hid behind the arena wall. The creature was nowhere to be seen. Kyle was sobbing on the floor, and all of our eyes were filled with tears. We had lost 2 of our friends to that thing. 2 really great friends. "What was that thing, Manny?" Isaiah asked in shock. "Why are you asking me? I don't know," I replied with a hiss. "Why didn't you guys help?" Kyle asked. "Wyatt could still be alive and with us if you would have helped," Kyle said. "Maybe if you hadn't sat there and just watched, he would be here," Kyle said. "Listen, Kyle, it's nobody's fault. It's your fault. You should have helped him," Kyle shouted. "Guys, calm down. If we want to live through this, we are going to have to work together and not argue with each other," I said. I'm sorry, Isaiah. I shouldn't be blaming this on you nor Manny. It's my fault. I'm the one who tripped, Kyle replied. Nobody is to blame here, Kyle, so don't be too upset about it, I said. We sat there for a good 15 minutes before getting up and trying to find an exit. We first went to the place where Wyatt was killed. We paid our respects to our dead friend. There wasn't much we could do since we couldn't bury him. After a moment, we got up and began to walk towards the snack area. I remembered seeing a room behind the counter. Maybe that's where that thing had entered. We made our way over the counter and into the door. When we entered, we were greeted with the smell of frozen pizza and freezing cold air. This must be the freezer, Kyle said. Yeah, no kidding. It's colder than Mrs. Polk's classroom in here, Isaiah joked. It seemed too big to be a freezer, though. There were just piles of boxes lying everywhere. It wasn't much to see in there, just boxes and cold air. Doesn't look like there's any kind of door in here, I remarked as we all scanned the room. But there isn't anywhere else that thing could have gotten in, Kyle said, making a verbal note all of us had to agree with. Well, not exactly. There is one more way, I tentatively replied. What do you mean? We've literally checked everywhere, Kyle replied. I'm not saying it broke in or anything like that, I replied more confidently. Then how could it have gotten in? Isaiah asked with a skeptical glance. So, you know how we didn't see Landon's body anywhere? I asked. Yeah, what about it? Kyle said with a curious look. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. What if that thing had crawled into Landon before he got here? I explained, and everyone looked at me like I was a madman. But that's impossible. That thing's too big to fit inside of him, Isaiah stated blandly. A few mumbles of agreement were passed around. I just bit the inside of my cheek. I knew I had to be right, so why does this sound so outlandish compared to what we've already faced? Listen, we don't know what that thing is. For all we know, it could change its own body mass. I argued my case, trying to get my point across. But wouldn't Landon have known? Kyle asked in a dubious manner. He was probably going to be the last person to take my side on this. I mean, Landon was acting pretty strange when he got here. He wasn't talking all that much anyway, and when he did, he would stutter a lot, Isaiah said with furrowed brows as he looked at the floor distantly, probably trying to recall any interaction with their lost friend. Now that I think of it, he was acting really strange, Kyle agreed with a sad look. A silence passed over us. Then we all shook out of it, and I spoke up. Let's get out of here. I'm freezing, I stated quickly. We stepped out of the freezer and walked out of the snack area, none of us really knowing what to say with our new recollection of the night. Nothing really seems real anymore, more fantasy-like. Our only option is to survive until morning, Isaiah said in a huff, his eyes scanning the building. Immediately, Kyle was up and disagreeing. As I've discovered, that's normal for tonight. Have you seen that thing? We won't be able to outrun it, he said in a panicked way. His words were more of a hiss of terror. If we can just find somewhere to stay and hide all night, we might be able to survive this, Isaiah replied with a sigh. But there's literally nowhere to hide, I said. There is one place, Kyle said, seemingly after gathering his emotions together again. Well, spit it out, I said. The freezer. The door is way too strong to get busted down, Kyle explained with a sure of himself look. Yeah, no, I don't feel like dying from frostbite, Isaiah said with obvious disdain to the idea. I mean, what other options do we have? I asked. Yeah, you're right, Isaiah agreed with another sigh. As we were speaking, the lights went out, surrounding us in darkness. Then, that familiar smell filled the air. Then, the roar. The same roar that fills me with terror. Run, Isaiah screamed. We couldn't see much since the lights were out. Even so, I turned around and all I saw were white glowing dots. It was right behind us. I couldn't see Kyle or Isaiah anywhere. We had been separated. It was still pitch black, but my eyes were beginning to adjust to the darkness. I turned around, and those white dots were gone, and so was the smell. I didn't dare to shout for them. They were on their own. From what I could tell, I was in the foam pit area, and I was alone with that thing on the loose. I started walking to what I thought the direction of the dodgeball arena was. It was quiet. It was a little too quiet. At this point, I could hear myself breathing, and the temperature seemed to be lowering. The silence was soon broken by a loud scream of terror. I ran to where I thought the scream was coming from. I stumbled around in the dark, making my way over to the scream. It seemed to be getting farther the closer I got, but I kept walking, hoping I would be able to help my friend. I kept walking faster and faster to the point where I was running. It seemed like I was getting closer. The same metallic smell filled the air as I got closer. That's when the lights came back on. I could finally see again. At this point, the screaming had stopped. I looked over and saw it. I locked eyes with the beast. I froze out of fear. I saw Kyle run out of the office area. "I found the power switch!" he shouted in a wave of happiness, which seemed weird given our conditions. That's when the creature darted at me. It moved way too fast for me to react. Quickly, it pounced onto me. I could feel its warm breath hit me in the face. I couldn't get out of its grip. It was too strong. I was beginning to accept my fate, but that's when I saw Isaiah jump onto its back. The creature let go of me, now trying to focus on its attacker. During all the commotion, I could just barely make out what was going on. The creature was swinging its arms everywhere, trying to get Isaiah off its back. During this, it had struck me with its forearm, knocking me back onto the cold tiled floor. I saw Kyle run over to help me up. "Come on, Manny, we have to go," Kyle shouted in fear, eyes wide. "No, we can't just leave Isaiah behind," I argued. I'd lost enough friends. I turned to look at the creature. It had managed to get Isaiah off its back and had him in its grasp. I watched as it bit down onto his neck, killing him on the spot. I couldn't let out any words. I was too shocked. Kyle grabbed my shoulder, motioning for me to run. After a moment, I snapped back into reality and started running the opposite direction. Adrenaline filled my veins. I looked back to see that thing still feasting on Isaiah. It didn't even care about us. We rounded the corner to the snack area and ran into the freezer. Once me and Kyle got safely into the freezer, I started to feel sick. I ran over to the far corner, on the left, and spilled my guts out all over the floor. "You okay, Manny?" Kyle asked with a sympathetic look. "Why did he do that?" I asked with a sense of dread filling me. "What do you mean?" Kyle asked. He was being a bit too calm about this for my current liking. "Why did he save me and not himself?" I repeated, shaking a little at the repetition of something I shouldn't even need to be asking. For a moment, Kyle seemed at a loss for words. Kyle tried to muster the right words, but seemingly he couldn't. "I don't know." Tears filled my eyes, and I started to sob uncontrollably. The tears felt hot as they ran down my face. I took my glasses off to wipe the lenses with my hoodie. "Are you okay now, Manny?" Kyle asked. Yeah, I'm fine now," I replied, wiping my tears off my cheeks. My eyes began to wander around the room. After a moment, something caught my eye. A pile of propane tanks. "What are propane tanks doing in the freezer?" I asked, turning to look at Kyle. "I don't really know," he replied in a tone just as questioning as mine. That's when I got an idea. "What if we use these propane tanks to escape?" I suggested. "That's a good idea, but how are we going to light them up?" Kyle asked, his eyes still showing bits of disagreement, but he didn't voice it this time. While we were hiding under that counter from the beast, I saw an oven. One of those ovens they use to cook pizza, I explained, and Kyle's face showed the reaction as the gears clicked. He got a skeptical look, but still seemed in light agreement. So you're suggesting we blow this place sky high? Kyle asked. Yes I am, I responded. But what are we going to do about the creature? Kyle asked with the sudden thought of the creature still existing, which, I'll admit, made my stomach turn. Maybe it'll die in the flames, I replied, truly hoping I was right for once. I hope you're right, Manny. Kyle sighed and patted my shoulder in a solemn way. Oh, trust me, I'm always right, I said, trying to mock myself away from my self-doubt. There was about 5 propane tanks. We had to make as little noise as possible so we didn't draw attention to our position. I opened the latched door. Warm air hit me in the face as the door slowly opened. The beast was nowhere to be seen. Kyle and I started moving the propane tanks outside the freezer. We placed one in the oven and the rest beside it, hoping it would set off the rest. We closed the stove and turned it on, and ran about 30 feet away from the stove and waited. We knew it would be coming as soon as the first propane tank exploded. We took cover behind one of those walls that felt like rubber. It was just big enough to crouch behind. We could hear the whistling of the propane tank as it heated up in the oven. Then, a loud boom-like sound followed by a couple more. The explosion was so big it caused the lights to go out in this section. Orange lights filled in the darkness, and smoke filled the air. The fire was spreading quickly throughout the building. Then, we saw it. The creature came running into the snack area with its arms fully extended out in front of its face, but it stopped in front of the flames. Immediately, Kyle and I looked at each other and knew exactly what to do. We ran up behind the creature and pushed it into the orange flames. It turned around and roared, its mouth contorted in ways that didn't seem physically possible. We slowly backed away from the fire. Did we kill it? Is it over? Kyle asked with shaky breath and wild eyes. The sight looked otherworldly with the glowing flames that licked the air. I don't know. It isn't screaming anymore, I replied with a very hesitant flicker of hope. Maybe we had done it. Just as we thought it was over, our hopes were taken away from us. The beast started to rise up from the flames and began slowly walking out of the fire. Its skin charred and black from the scorched flames. Its glowing white eyes glared at us. It was as if nothing could stop this thing. Then it let out another roar. This one sounded different, though. It sounded as if many other voices screeched at once. Once it finished its dreadful cry, it slowly started walking towards us. No, it should be dead, Kyle breathed out, eyes showing wild and unmasked terror. Then it pounced at us. Kyle pushed me out of the way. I hit the floor, feeling a pop in my left shoulder. I wailed in pain at the realization I could barely move my left arm. Quickly, I looked over at Kyle. That thing had pinned him to the ground. I tried to get up, but I fell back down. The fire was spreading rapidly. I looked back over at Kyle. The creature was about to bite down on his neck. That's when I got another idea. Probably one of those ideas Isaiah would have said not to do if he were still here. I got up again, this time not falling over. I took off my hoodie and wrapped it around the creature's neck. The creature had let go of Kyle. This gave him the chance to drive his thumbs into the creature's eyes. That's when the creature grabbed me, flipping me over its back, causing me to land beside Kyle. The creature let us go. It started slowly backing away, wailing in pain. I could see blood coming out of its eyes from where Kyle had driven his thumbs into them. Kyle, my only remaining companion, picked me up, putting my arm around his shoulders. As quick as we could, we started limping to the front door. Even now, we could still hear the creature wailing in pain. The flames began to make their way to the roof of the building. All the lights had gone out by this point. The only lights we had left were orange flickering glow from the flames. We were almost to the front door when the creature decided it wasn't through with us yet. The creature came running towards us, ramming into me and Kyle, knocking us down. I fell over and could barely move from the extreme pain I was feeling. Everything was blurry, and I could barely see. I got up and saw the creature. Kyle was right beside me. "Manny, you have to get out of here," Kyle said. Unlike the last times he had said things like this, his voice showed no room for argument. For once, he seemed determined. "No, I'm not leaving you behind," I argued, not wanting to leave him. Too many friends lost, not enough left. And if there was a way, I'd be sure to save Kyle. "I should be able to hold it off long enough for you to escape," Kyle continued, looking at me with tears in his eyes. "Kyle, please," I said with a tear rolling down my cheek. Ashes filled the air. The building would collapse soon. "Manny, you have to go now," Kyle shouted. I did what he told me to do. I made my way to the front door, and it was still locked. I started kicking at the door with all my might. I looked back at Kyle. He tackled the creature, knocking both of them down. The creature got up faster than Kyle. The beast easily overpowered him, picking him up and throwing him at the wall. "Manny, you have to hurry. I can't hold it off for much longer," Kyle shouted. A large mass of wood and flame fell down from the ceiling, knocking both of them to the floor. I began to kick the door more aggressively. With one final kick, the door swung open. "Kyle, the door is open, come on!" I shouted with desperation. Kyle started running towards me, but the creature had grabbed his leg, making him fall to the ground. "Manny, you have to leave me!" Kyle shouted. "I'm not leaving you!" I shouted back. I started walking to Kyle, but a large piece of wood fell from the ceiling, sending me flying backwards and blocking my path to Kyle. I got up and looked at Kyle. The flames were beginning to surround him and the creature. "Manny, go!" Kyle shouted. There was no way I could get to Kyle. My path was blocked. I had only one option: leave. I looked at my friend one last time before leaving the building. I got out into the middle of the parking lot before turning around and looking at the building. I fell to my knees and I watched as the building collapsed from the flames. As the building tumbled down, it sent millions of tiny ash pieces into the sky. Finally, it was over. I had survived. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep. I woke up to the sound of sirens. I slowly opened my eyes to see paramedics putting me on a stretcher and rolled me inside the ambulance. Then I blacked out. I woke up in the ambulance and I looked at the paramedic. The paramedic was staring at the wall. "Hello?" I asked lightly. I smelled something. That same metallic smell, and I felt a sense of dread. I looked over at the paramedic again. He turned to face me. All I saw were white, glowing eyes. His mouth started to contort in unnatural ways, and then a roar.